Kobane, northern Syria. Only a few months ago, the Kurds liberated the city from the IS. In July, it is dry as dust and hot, really hot. The thermometer shows 47 degrees Celsius. Nevertheless, work goes on. Between the ruins, the international brigades of ICOR want to build a new healthcare center. Their contribution to ensure the victory against the IS. Gabi, 38, is leader of this brigade. The close cooperation with the workers from Kobane is important to her.
The workers and we have become one brigade. It's not here the workers, they're the brigades. They are part of it.
At home in London, Sandy is a track worker for the railway. He regards the work here as a challenge.
The bullet holes have bullet holes. It's, the devastation is unbelievable.
Klaus is 62. The electrician comes from Leipzig and has volunteered for the site management.
I do have some experience in construction work, but site management was a real challenge for me.
They work 9 hours a day, without pay on their annual holiday. They pay for flight and food themselves. Fridays they have the day off. Sarah is teacher at a primary school in Germany. She's not at all used to working on a construction site.
The manual labor can do you good. You just have to tough it out.
Not even 30 kilometers from here is the front line against the Islamic State. What makes these people come here voluntarily in the midst of a war zone? They are the second of 9 successive brigades, and this film tells their story. Kobane. In September 2014, terror gangs of the IS attacked the city. All at once, the city is known worldwide as the Kurdish men and women fighters put up heroic resistance against the supposedly invincible fascists. The fanatic hatred of the IS for Kobane is no coincidence. In the wake of the Arab Spring here in 2012, the forces of the democratic revolution triumphed over the Syrian Assad regime. They established the autonomous Kurdish region Rojava. They secured previously unknown democratic rights and liberties and enforced for this region really revolutionary women's rights. Of great importance is also that different ethnic groups live side by side in peace and equality. Rojava regards itself as a model for a democratic revolution throughout Syria, a progressive signal for the entire Middle East. After the attacks of the IS, a worldwide solidarity movement arose that provided encouragement for the Kurdish fighters. Stefan Engel is chairman of the MLPD and main coordinator of the international revolutionary organization ICOR. He makes the proposal to have international brigades support this liberation struggle.
When the fascists advanced in Spain seeking to destroy the Spanish Republic, the Comintern called upon fighters worldwide to support the Spanish Republic. That was real internationalism. That was proletarian internationalism. That is what we have to aim at. All revolutionaries of this world have to be Kurds today and bring this liberation struggle forward. Long live international solidarity.
In January 2015, after 134 days of fierce battles, the Kurdish unit succeeded in defeating the IS and driving them out of the city. Taking advantage of the US bombing, they inflicted the first major military defeat on the IS. But the city paid a huge price for its liberation. 80% of the buildings are destroyed. A majority of the inhabitants had to flee. Only if the city is rebuilt again can the victory over the IS be ensured for the long term. In the meantime, the ICOR plans for the international brigades get more concrete. Together with the self-governing bodies in Rojava, they decide to build a healthcare center, because almost all hospitals were destroyed by the IS. On 6th of July 2015 in Gelsenkirchen, Germany, the first brigades get a ceremonial send-off. Stefan Engel tells them,
Above all, you have to learn to connect with the masses. There are no international brigades building something for Kobane. There are only international brigades that develop this project together with the people who live there and those who want to live there in future.
At the end of July, the 2nd Brigade sets off. 177 brigadists in 7 consecutive brigades will be going to Kobane this year. The Turkish government denies transit for the trucks carrying the tools donated in Germany, so they have to be transported in the flight baggage. Turkey also tries to prevent the brigadists' transit to Syria. Entering Rojava legally is unthinkable. In the meantime, night has fallen and the helpers first land in a refugee camp on the Turkish side of the border. On the other side, there is an even bigger camp with more than 35,000 refugees, a tangible sign of the mass flight from the civil war in Syria. The helpers must spend the night here and wait for a good opportunity to cross the border illegally. Between barbed wire fences and Turkish border patrols, they finally make their way to Kobane. The next morning, the first station is the construction site. The helpers are shocked by the magnitude of the destruction. But the brigade is determined to realize its mission.
Well, this will be the entrance.
Where you now see the pit excavated by the 1st Brigade, a 600 square meter large healthcare center will soon be standing. Klaus explains to the brigadists what is going to be built where. After breakfast, the first tasks are assigned. That's not so easy, because they don't even have a wheelbarrow. Because of Turkey's blockade, tools are lacking everywhere. Even the material the brigadists brought along in their baggage hasn't arrived yet. But they know how to help themselves. No one gets discouraged. The construction site is secured by armed guards. The threat from the IS is omnipresent. 2 days later, the first reinforcing steel is delivered. It is processed at the site with the simplest methods. The construction site slowly takes shape.
It proved true that you don't necessarily need years of experience, but with a good plan and a good troop of people, and we have them here, you can achieve things that would normally take almost a year to prepare and carry out. The 1st Brigade already did very good work with the containers so that we can live here.
The goal of the 1st Brigade was actually to complete the foundations, but things developed differently. Shortly after they arrived, the IS attacked places with explosive and machine guns where many civilians gather. 234 people were murdered. The 1st Brigade had to interrupt its work. With great courage and determination, YPG and YPJ beat off the attacks of the IS. The brigadists discussed the situation thoroughly and unanimously decided to remain in Kobane. The Kurdish forces drew conclusions for improving security. The IS wanted to torpedo precisely the reconstruction of Kobane. Peter Weisfenning, leader of the 1st Brigade, remembers. We decided unanimously not to shrink back in the face of this terror. Abu Bhutan from the self-administration of Kobane states, "People say the Germans immediately went back to work after the fighting. I observed you, how people were cheering you. Your presence and work have greatest significance for morale." One consequence drawn from the massacre is that the healthcare center additionally has to be equipped with a cellar shelter. The 2nd Brigade continues the work of the 1st. The conditions in a city destroyed by war and under blockade constantly pose new challenges to the brigade and its leaders. Again and again, they have to deal with the lack of material and tools.
Hussein had to drive from one construction site to the next in Kobane yesterday and try to get hold of a machine.
And for real, the next morning, one of the few concrete mixing machines finally comes to the construction site.
The important thing is that it works. That's good.
The pouring of the concrete foundation slab can begin.
Some of the mixers, you can see them here, are incredible. Age-old machines that run every day at 100%. Of course, we've had to deal with material fatigue, broken shafts, torn chains. There were a variety of uncertainties to cope with.
Today there's a problem with the engine. The pouring of the foundation slab has stopped because the mixer won't start. Cooling and patient persuasion work are necessary to coax it into continuing work. But the schedule can't be met with day-to-day improvisation alone. Especially under conditions like these, long-range planning is all the more important. But also the determination of all participants to adhere to the plan despite all odds. That the members of the leadership fully take part in the work is an accepted principle here. There are noticeably many industrial workers in the brigade, also from companies of the auto and steel industries. Their experience in disciplined and systematic work is of great value. In the evenings, the brigade discusses again and again how the construction and the efficient allocation of the work can be improved. It is also important to avoid time-consuming mistakes.
That after every third shovelful, you check whether you shoveled out the 45. Otherwise, there's no explanation why today we find that so much had to be heaped up in one place.
Health issues and the allocation of tasks in a spirit of solidarity also play a big role.
On the other hand, there are also jobs like shoveling in the parching heat, which is simply much more strenuous than bending metal in the shade. It is important to hit the right balance so that the same people are not always standing in the sun.
The discussion shows its effects on the construction site. Salih, one of the Kurdish workers, reports how they develop closer and closer ties with the brigade.
We can hardly describe our feelings that people from Germany come here to work with us. This is a great joy for us. We will accomplish this project together. The healthcare center will be finished. We work with the German colleagues as if they were brothers and sisters.
The cooperation between the brigadists and the Kurdish workers is shaping up very well. The hired Kurdish workers make the task their cause.
The Kurdish workers have this experience and convey it very well. That is what I find so exciting. Despite the language barrier, I think that actually only 3 of our people speak Comanche. The rest communicate with their hands and feet and with a few words that we've learned. And it works. That's really great.
The brigade leadership evaluates the work on the construction site every day. Gabi Gärtner reports today about an email from the architect who advises the brigade via the internet from Germany. He can hardly believe how quickly progress is being made.
On 24th of May, we first found out that we would have to build a new house. Up to then, we assumed that we could renovate a house. And then he said, technically, we need 1 year for planning and then another 9 months or 1 year for building. And now he says he never would have thought it possible to get so far.
It is a construction site of a special kind. The Kurdish population and the brigadists encourage each other to reconstruct the city.
You gain respect for this city. The people experience such destruction and now work on the reconstruction with such a thirst for life and such vigor. That motivates you to help here.
Purchase needs to be done every day. Here, too, close contacts with the population develop. Supplying the brigades and the local workers with food is always a big challenge. The brigadists almost completely refrain from eating meat. Most people from Kobane cannot afford it. The helpers' daily budget would allow meat, but it is against their principles to lead a better life than the local population. Cooking, dining and sleeping take place directly on the construction site in containers. In the meantime, the brigadists regularly are supported in cooking by girls from the neighborhood, including Kurdish live music. Cleaning, cooking and night vigils are divided up in solidarity. Sarah from the brigade leadership is responsible for that.
We have a schedule for course in which everyone has to sign in 2 times per week, where we cook and clean together and organize these things. We have a food kitty and a construction fund. As to the construction fund, it is important that the donation money really gets there, that this is checked and guidance is provided how it is done.
And the accounting is really taken very seriously. The mixture of Turkish liras, Syrian pounds, euros and US dollars doesn't make it easier, but in the end everything is correct. At least 1.5 million euros in money, donations in kind and in labor are needed for the project in all. Up till now, only €2.45 per person and day were spent for food, much less than planned. So more than €1,000 can be donated for cement. Taking meals together with the workers from Kobane now is part of the daily routine. Not everyone is very hungry in this heat, but without enough to eat, the work can't be done. The brigadists get their water from the tank trucks that come by regularly. Even before the war, water was in short supply in this region. The existing water supply in the city was destroyed in the war. For the helpers, needless to say, they refrain from showering or washing clothes every day. They do not want to increase the water shortage in the city even more. If there is time, the girls from the neighborhood also help with improving the Kurdish language abilities, and they get some English lessons in exchange. Free time is used for resting or informing oneself about what is going on in the rest of the world. A number of discussion meetings are conducted on the current developments, the goals of ICOR, or with representatives of the self-administration about the perspectives of the democratic revolution in Rojava. The brigade is composed of people with very different political views and backgrounds. People with different world outlooks, pacifists, Christians, Marxist-Leninists and anarchists work together here. So discussions can be quite controversial. Gabi Gärtner says this is a challenge and an opportunity at the same time.
All of us are united in supporting this liberation struggle. But that, of course, does not mean unity in all questions. We dealt with that very well and developed it further. That also creates hope for the future. A lot of people always say, you can't get people together. And here, we see that the struggle for the liberation of humanity can join us together and that we can succeed in overcoming the problems and contradictions that arise.
The problem is not the different views. You just have to learn to deal with them in the right way, is also what Jonah thinks.
I have the feeling that the culture of debate is one of solidarity, and that's what's important. When you live together so closely for an entire month, or work together the whole time, it's clear that tensions arise. Then the question is how these tensions are solved, whether conflicts persist, or you come to joint solutions.
No one will return home and be the same as when they came. For everyone, this is a great field of learning that changes the people who are here. Sarah also observed this.
Every day you experience new things, every day new issues that arise that you have to deal with. But I think it's a great field of learning. I myself have never worked on such a construction site or in such a war zone. Under such extreme conditions, it is important that we build a strong team where everyone can rely on each other, where we always discuss matters and advance the project.
More than 80 men, women and children come to the neighborhood celebration of the 2nd Brigade. Actually, only 5 families were invited, but interest in the strangers and their project is gigantic. As the leader of the brigade, Gabi Gärtner presents the details of the project.
When you enter the building, there will be doctors, treatment rooms and also facilities for performing minor surgery. This project was organized by the ICOR, that is an organization of revolutionary parties and organizations.
The International Coordination of Revolutionary Parties and Organizations, ICOR for short, was founded in 2010 as an initiative for joining together the revolutionaries worldwide in the struggle for a socialist system. 49 member organizations from more than 30 countries coordinate their practical cooperation here. Its goal? Never again shall it happen that revolutions and liberation movements are crushed and fail because they do not get enough solidarity and are nationally isolated. ICOR joins very different parties and organizations on an equal basis. It is open for cooperation with other democratic and progressive organizations. The chief partner in the Mutual Solidarity Pact between ICOR and Kurdish Liberation Struggle is the KCDE, the European Kurdish Democratic Societies Congress, an umbrella organization for numerous Kurdish organizations from all sectors of society. Partner is also the Turkish Kurdish party MLKP, which is an ICOR member. With this practical cooperation, the Kurdish liberation struggle no longer stands alone, but becomes a part of the worldwide revolutionary movement. The goal of this pact is not only the recognition of Rojava by the governments and the lifting of the criminalization of the PKK. The project of the International Brigades for reconstructing Kobane is also part of it. At the neighborhood celebration of the brigade, Ibrahim Khalil, co-mayor of Kobane, pays tribute to this work.
I'm grateful to you that you returned after the massacre. You are the only international organization that came back and is continuing its work. We are proud of you. We shall continue to work hand in hand against terrorism.
This healthcare center stands for international solidarity, for the common struggle for a liberated society. You here in Kobane are an example for us. We will always feel the strong ties that have been established between us through this common cause. This center will always remind us of this.
Donia lives not far from the construction site. We will not only reconstruct Kobane, says the young neighbor with optimism, but it will also become more beautiful than it was before the war. We will create things that did not exist before. Brigade members from the Youth League Rebel distribute toys. The Red Foxes, their children's organization, made them as a demonstration of solidarity with the children in Kobane. Today the feeling of hope, solidarity and confidence overcomes all worries and cares, here in Rojava, encircled by enemies. The project is carried out in close cooperation with the Kurdish self-administration organs. Important representatives of the democratic revolution in Kobane and Rojava often visit the brigade. Today, Asya Abdullah surveys the progress. She is the co-chairwoman of the PYD, the leading party here in Rojava. There are a lot of organizations that help us, she says. With money or material, what you are doing is very different. You live and work with us under the conditions that we are living under. Finally, the baggage with the tools arrives. With great effort, Kurdish friends manage to transport it across the border. The blockade policy of Turkey makes things very hard, not only for the ICOR brigades. Others have the same problem. Kurdish doctors from Germany report how their relief goods are detained at the border. Turkey can hamper the relief efforts, but not stop them. How collaboration can take place in the future of the healthcare center project is the topic of the discussion. Crossing the Turkish border is a risky undertaking, not only for materials, but especially for the brigadists. Sascha, an automotive worker from Germany, reports.
My travel group was arrested by Turkish military during the border crossing from Turkey to Rojava. After 5 days in jail, we were deported to Germany, and there we decided, we journey on, try it once again. We went to Iraq, and from there we were successful. We reached Kobane. Other brigadists were abused. They were clubbed with rifle butts, kicked into the barbed wire fence. One was even older than 60.
Salih is working on the construction site. He witnessed how the Turkish government supports the IS terrorists.
The war between the IS and Kobane was operated via Turkey. Often we saw how Turkey infiltrated IS people via the villages so that they could attack the city. When I was with a YPG, I fought close to the border. I myself saw Turkish tanks firing at our side and Turkish bullets flying around our faces, and fighters of ours were wounded.
But the Kurdish population is not to be intimidated. More than 170,000 inhabitants returned to Kobane in 2015. The Turkish government is enormously aggravating the causes of flight with its blockade of supplies. This also drives some to flee to Europe, but the great majority want to rebuild their city and finish the democratic revolution. But that has mighty enemies. Numerous videos and eyewitness reports prove how the IS terrorists got full support from the Turkish side. Nearly all IS fighters from Europe travel to Syria via Turkey without being challenged. When the newspaper Cumhuriyet reported about arms deliveries of the Turkish Secret Service to the IS, the chief editor was put in jail for betrayal of state secrets at the end of November, and the investigating prosecutors were dismissed. There was not a word of criticism from the German government. Instead, it delivers weapons to Turkey, criminalizes the PKK and provides support for Erdogan's election campaign because he is supposed to keep people away from the EU who are fleeing from the civil war in Syria or for other reasons. And this war did not fall from the sky. It was the USA and the NATO countries that wanted to overthrow the dictator Assad to wrest the country from Russian influence. Syria has also become a bone of contention between the regional new imperialist powers Iran, Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Several of Assad's adversaries deliberately promoted Islamist fascist gangs like IS and al-Nusra. The German government delivers weapons and maintains best relations with Saudi Arabia and Qatar, well-known promoters of IS. On the one hand, the USA weakened the IS in Kobane with its bombing. At the same time, the city was heavily destroyed. With its bombing, the USA was not looking to promote the democratic project Rojava, but its regional power interests. The US renders no assistance at all for the reconstruction of Kobane. The German federal government also rejects humanitarian relief for Rojava. When brigadists in northern Iraq were prevented from leaving for Rojava by the Barzani government, the Foreign Office rejected any help. Help would only be provided in significant cases. The reconstruction of Kobane doesn't seem to belong to that category. As one of few, the German government refuses any contact with the self-governing organs of Rojava. All NATO countries tolerate the aggressive war policy of their ally Turkey against the Kurdish people. On the other side are Russia, China and the regional power Iran, who in any case want to maintain the Assad regime as their overseer in Syria. The only point on which they agree is to fight the democratic revolution in Rojava. Self-reliance and international solidarity are the only sources of support for Rojava. The petition, "Open the border, Kobane must live," started by a number of prominent signatories, gathered nearly 30,000 signatures. In Germany, the MLPD as ICOR member has made the project widely known among the population. Its members went from door to door and in front of the factories nationwide to campaign for support. 150,000 euros and 8 tons of tools were collected. In this way, the Kobane-Brigades become the affair of 10,000s of people. Dr. Willy Mast also is active in Rojava Solidarity. The general practitioner from Gelsenkirchen has helped build the doctors' initiative Doctors for Rojava, together with Dr. Dersim Dagdevidem. They have made it their business to provide the complete equipment of the healthcare center in Kobane.
To date, we've collected equipment valued at about 50,000 euros. It includes, for example, a surgery set of high quality, which is of good use in all surgical fields.
At the end of October 2015, they were able to send off a truck with a new load of medications and medical devices via Iraq. In Kobane, they and their relief goods get an enthusiastic and joyous reception. The cross-border solidarity of the workers plays an important role. A volunteer brigade of 42 truck and excavator drivers from the Turkish Kurdish city of Diyarbakir is in Kobane. They have come here to clear the rubble from the streets. They cooperate closely with the ICOR brigade. Mustafa is one of them, and he tells us,
"Thank you that you have come here from so far away to carry out this project. It is good to see that this world brotherhood of the working people is also coming alive here in Kurdistan. This is a symbol of hope, especially for the youth in Diyarbakir."
The strong feeling of connectedness of people who never met before and do not even speak the same language comes alive here on the building site. A few meters away, the diesel generator is on strike once again. But as always, some neighbors come quickly to help mend it. Since the central power supply was destroyed in the war, the people in Kobane have to get by with thousands of small diesel generators. This is why the ICOR and the Kurdish self-administration attached great importance to the ecological aspect of the project right from the start. An important part of this is that the power will be supplied to the healthcare center by a solar panel roof in future. Also, there are plans to use alternative building materials, but they first have to be found. The brigadists want to make inquiries and go to the village of Halince, where the knowledge of traditional construction methods is still alive. For 50 years, concrete has been used almost exclusively for building in this region, imposed by colonial and neo-colonial rule. Apart from the harmful effect of cement production on the climate, the pure concrete construction method is not suitable for the climate here because it leads to quick mold formation in the buildings. In Halince, there are some houses that are more than 100 years old and were built with traditional clay bricks. The otherwise forgotten knowledge about the old construction material is partly still alive here. Nico of the brigade leadership, a fort worker at home, is mainly responsible for launching the production of clay bricks. Will the inhabitants support the brigade and its project? The arrival of the strangers immediately attracts much attention in the village. Everyone is happy to pass on their knowledge. Where do you find the right ingredients, or what is the right mixing ratio? One of the clay buildings was renovated and is still inhabited. When you enter, you notice at once how comfortably cool it is in contrast to the scorching heat outside. In winter, Hassan, the owner, explains he needs 2/3 less heating oil than his father, who lives in a concrete building. They also explain that the thick clay walls are much more resistant to machine gun fire compared to walls made of cement stone, which burst immediately. No minor aspect in this region. We make for the place indicated by the peasants to get clay and soil for the formula. The also needed straw is in short supply at the moment in Kobane, but the peasants assure us they would scratch together enough from the inhabitants for the building site of the brigade. 5 weeks later, the 4th Brigade is already implementing the plans on the construction site. Meanwhile, several locals are pitching in as volunteers. The city administration has blocked a street specifically for the clay brick production. One of the bombed-out cars serves as barrier. Improvisation in a city destroyed by war. 7,500 bricks are needed. To produce them in time, the workflow has to be improved. A genuine challenge and a goal they have to struggle to meet.
In only 2 hours, we produced more than half of what was our whole day's production yesterday.
The brigade achieved its goal. For the first time in 50 years, a building in Kobane again will get a natural, insulating layer of adobe bricks in addition to the base walls made of concrete. After completing the building, the ICOR will send a special ecological brigade to set up a solar power system, among other things. Back to the 2nd Brigade. It still lacks seats and tables. The children who play in the ruins of their bombed school at once help to search. They prove to have really good noses and lead the brigadists to the still partly intact benches. Most of the children here directly experienced the barbaric terror of the IS. Many of them are orphans. Nearly all of them lost close relatives or have to get by alone. The self-administration of Kobane and the people here with their limited means do everything to improve the situation of the children. Today the brigade is invited to the opening of a new kindergarten. Long live the resistance of Kobane, even the smallest chant. The new kindergarten goes back to the initiative of the administration and the women's organization in Kobane. Evin Hervas, head of the new institution, explains to us. Initially, the kindergarten was intended for the orphans of the fallen martyrs. But then we realized we could provide more capacity and open it also for other children. Even such events have to be safeguarded by armed fighters. Everybody knows that the IS is capable of anything, because Kobane is the symbol of their defeat. They want to prevent by all available means the progress of the democratic revolution and the international assistance for reconstruction. Only a few days before, in the Turkish border town of Suruç, the jihadists carried out a murderous attack on a group of the Federation of Socialist Youth Associations of Turkey, SGDF. They had come with a humanitarian intention to help reforesting in the area of Kobane. In the middle of their gathering, a terrorist blew himself up. The people are shocked and stunned. The bestial terror cost the lives of 34 young helpers. 76 were severely injured. Deep sorrow for the murdered young people mingles with hatred for the fascists and the determination to put an end to their activities, whatever it takes. And to date, nobody has contributed more to that than the Kurdish fighters in Rojava. Today, one of the main organizers of their self-defense comes to the building site. Ismet Hezin is defense minister of the canton Kobane. He reports.
We have been surrounded by the Islamist groups for 2 to 3 years and constantly have to defend ourselves against al-Nusra, IS and others. This has kept us from rebuilding many things, but we had no choice. Despite our very limited means, we managed the impossible and defeated the IS with its heavy weapons.
They are heavily outgunned by the jihadists. While the IS and al-Nusra are equipped with the most modern material, mainly from US stocks, the YPG/YPJ mostly fight with light weapons like Kalashnikovs or RPG grenade launchers. There are few heavier weapons like this one, so they are forced in part to armor construction and agricultural machines to be used as combat vehicles. Despite their inferiority in terms of weapons, they managed to defeat the IS. Most of the fighters of the YPG and YPJ do not get any pay. Their motivation is the selfless commitment to the cause of their revolution. The decisive advantage of the Kurdish units is their moral superiority and their close ties with the population. When Kobane was in greatest danger of falling, all parts of the population were armed and fought shoulder to shoulder with their armed forces. Anter, one of the skilled Kurdish concrete workers on the building site, who until recently fought with the YPG, also stresses this close cohesion.
The great solidarity and deep cohesion among the fighters in the YPG do not let the people down. When you get into danger, even your brother might run away and not help you, but YPG and YPJ will always be there. We often had situations where we did not know whether we would survive the day. But even at such moments, everyone looks out for everyone else.
Errors are addressed openly. Ismet Hasan frankly speaks about mistakes of the military leadership, which made it too easy for the IS to carry out the massacre on 25th of June.
We were so happy about our quick successes to liberate the cities of Girespi and Ain Issa from the IS that we felt too secure. After the massacre, we criticized ourselves that we had neglected the defense of Kobane too much. But we learn from our mistakes, and that makes us stronger.
To secure and consolidate the victory often is more important than the immediate military triumph itself. A lesson from the famous military scientist Karl von Clausewitz, which is becoming common knowledge also in Kobane. The armed district guards, who also are responsible for the protecting of the building site, tell us:
before the massacre, the people were too carefree. But now everybody is wide awake. We patrol the streets also at night. The tasks are distributed in the neighborhood. The gangs must not pull off anything like that again.
An important safeguard for the defense are also the special women's units of the YPJ. After the revolution, for many women the struggle to liberate the country was inseparably connected with overcoming the oppression by feudal structures and traditions in society. An important step was the participation of women in the armed forces. Thousands of women poured into the YPG. In the crude worldview of the jihadists, if you are killed by a woman, you will not get a place in paradise. This is why the traditional tongue thrilling of the female fighters spreads fear and horror among the IS gangs. And the fighters do not stop at trilling. Women are taking over leading positions everywhere in society. In each of the 3 cantons there is a women's military academy, Shahid Chilan, where female commanders are trained. This process is also taking place in civil life. Evidence of the overcoming of feudal clan structures. The Women's Association, which also exchange experiences with the female brigadists, do education work, visit women in the district, explain the tasks of the revolution. They tell the brigade that women often were not permitted to be economically independent, to learn a trade or profession, or to resist forced marriage. For many men and also women, the changes are still a not very simple learning process, but the revolutionary upheaval is changing the whole society step by step. Child marriages and forced marriages have been banned, also polygamy. It has become normal for the YPG fighters to do their own cleaning and cooking. Many only learned how to do so in their units and now practice it at home. The great self-confidence of the women here is apparent straight away. A return to the traditional patriarchal women's role has already become unimaginable for them. Next morning, Rosa, the old bus provided for the brigades by the self-government of Kobane, is the brigade's only means of transport. It obviously has an eventful history, is full of bullet holes, and the window panes still existing are not in the best condition. But it patiently transports everything needed: cement, pipes, food or people. Today it will take the brigade to the surrounding area of Kobane. A big challenge for Rosa, which covers such a long distance only unwillingly. Far outside the city, the peasants warmly welcome the brigade and proudly show their pistachio groves. At least those which were not burned down by the IS. The farmers tell us how they independently organized the armed resistance against the jihadists alongside the YPG.
Over there on Segros Hill, there was heavy fighting with the IS. 12 comrades were killed, but we could defend the village. The YPG had called on the population to get to safety, but most of them stayed and took part in the combat.
On this afternoon, the brigadists enjoy their hospitality and the hosts are happy with their unusual guests. The outdoor living room becomes a meeting place for fraternization and people's friendship. But eventually, it comes time to say goodbye. On the outskirts of Kobane, the bus finally goes belly up for today. As the brigadists have to wait in the street for replacement, this quickly gets around. Inhabitants come out of their homes to express their thanks. The next morning after the day off, work at the building site is tackled with much energy. Due to the great difficulty procuring machines and material, the milestone to finish the foundation slab is meanwhile in danger. The brigades want to try everything to still make it. The members of the 2nd Brigade will be departing soon. Despite all efforts, the foundation slab is not quite finished. But they've gotten pretty far and others will continue their work. Shortly before the return journey begins, they make one last excursion. A moving encounter with the struggle of the Kurdish people, which they were able to experience at close quarters. Kani wants to show us the graveyard of the martyrs. Those who lost their lives during the defense of the revolution are buried here. Kani, a YPG fighter himself, explains that many of them also came from other regions of Kurdistan. Graveyard and memorial are witness to the great sacrifices, but also the steadfast will to win and the indomitability of the people here. We learn that Kani lost his daughter through the IS just a few weeks earlier and how he copes with that. A touching conversation, making the bond between the brigadists and the Kurdish people even tighter and the farewell harder. 3 months later, meanwhile the 6th Brigade is busy finishing the building shell as scheduled. The self-produced clay bricks now have been set. But there still is a lot to do until the official handover. Another 3 weeks later, the brigadists and the Kurdish workers, exhausted but proud and overjoyed, celebrate the timely completion of the most important tasks. Wolfgang shows us the building.
Rooms for the patients, the X-ray room, a surgery room.
The carpenters of Kobane, Wolfgang tells us, have finished the reception desk for future patients specifically for the handover ceremony. On 20th of November, the official handover of the new healthcare center from the ICOR to the self-government of Kobane is celebrated with a big event.
We warmly welcome you to the handover of the social and healthcare center in Kobane, from the ICOR to the self-governing organs here in Kobane. Welcome.
The confectioners of Kobane have recreated the building, clay bricks included, in the form of a huge cake. In Germany too, this success was celebrated with events in more than 30 cities. In Iraq, an ICOR delegation with the deputy ICOR main coordinator Sanjay Singhvi from India also celebrates. The arrival of the delegation at the handover ceremony was prevented with the complicity of the federal government of Germany. This has an unintended effect. There are reports about it during the best broadcasting time, not only on Iraqi TV. The success of the project is being vigilantly watched also in Turkey. Mehmet Öcalan, the brother of the imprisoned PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan, greets the ICOR Brigades.
We welcome this project very much. This work of the ICOR to support the struggle of the Kurdish people for peace and democracy is very important, especially in times when the war against us is being stepped up again.
In Kobane, the president of Kobane Canton, Enver Muslim, signs the handover agreement. A plaque at the entrance acknowledges the commitment of the ICOR Brigadists, who are all made honorary citizens of Kobane.
Kobane doesn't need ruins, but shining houses of the future. Workers and oppressed people of the world, unite.
Dostar Hemu, as person in charge of the reconstruction of Kobane, closely connected to the project from the very beginning, especially emphasizes the unity of the revolutionaries.
The spirit of socialism was defended in this project. We have jointly built this house. The people of the ICOR today hand over their contribution to the population of Kobane. On behalf of the administration of Kobane, we thank the ICOR very much. Congratulations for a job well done.
177 ICOR Brigadists worked on the project for 7 months. They came from Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria and Lebanon. From Britain, France and Morocco, from Tunisia and Germany. Volunteer working hours with a value of more than 700,000 euros were performed. Together with the Kurdish workers, they installed 500 cubic meters of concrete and 55 tons of steel. The healthcare center is the first and to date only reconstruction project since the liberation of Kobane finished with help from abroad. Perhaps it is just a new building in this war-battered city, but one with a great symbolic power. It demonstrates that the courageous people of Rojava are not only able to defeat the IS, it demonstrates that they will also secure this victory by building a democratic future worth living in. And it shows that they will never stand alone in this process. This special symbol of international solidarity was fought through against all difficulties. Soon the healthcare center will commence operation. A project that represents the basic idea of ICOR. Jointly and in solidarity, a power will emerge worldwide that will overcome exploitation and oppression, war and environmental destruction, and create a future worth living in for all people.